The setting was Cyprus, a crossroads of empires and modern intelligence, where the line between a vacationer and an operative is as thin as the edge of a passport. To the world, the clinic was a sanctuary for refugees fleeing the chaos of the Levant. To the Quds Force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, it was the perfect observation post. From the upper floor of the clinic, one had an unobstructed view of the shipping lanes and the distant silhouette of the offshore gas platforms that powered a nation. Arash's routine was a study in mundane perfection. He arrived at 6, left at 8, and spent his evenings in a quiet taverna reading poetry. He was the invisible man, the ordinary citizen whose presence was so constant it became part of the landscape. But in the world of shadows, perfection is often the loudest signal of all. Intelligence is not always found in a stolen file or a tapped phone. Sometimes it is found in the way a man holds a pen, or the fact that a dedicated doctor never seems to lose his professional composure, even when faced with the most harrowing human suffering. It was this lack of emotional fatigue that first drew the attention of the Mossad. They didn't see a villain, they saw a professional performing a role. The investigation began not with an arrest, but with a shadow. A young woman, seemingly a backpacker with a penchant for sketching, began frequenting the same taverna. She didn't look for Arash, she looked at the world he occupied.
She noticed that while Arash spoke fluent Arabic and Farsi, his syntax in moments of extreme stress, like a sudden medical emergency, betrayed a specific regional dialect from the military academies of Isfahan. It was a tiny crack in the porcelain. The Mossad began to deconstruct his life with the precision of a surgeon. They traced the medical degree to a university in Europe, finding a real Arash Rezai, who had died in a hiking accident a decade ago. The man in Cyprus had simply stepped into a dead man's shoes, inheriting a past, a family history, and a set of skills that were real enough to pass any superficial check. But the ghost had a purpose. He wasn't there to heal children. He was there to map the vulnerabilities of the Leviathan gas field. The medical supplies delivered to the clinic were not all bandages and vaccines. Some crates, handled only by the doctor himself, contained high-frequency transmitters disguised as diagnostic equipment. As the weeks passed, the tension tightened without a single word being exchanged between the hunter and the prey. The Mossad team operated in the peripherals, never engaging, never revealing their hand. They watched Arash meet with a local fisherman whose boat had a suspiciously powerful engine and a range that exceeded any commercial necessity. They watched as encrypted bursts of data were sent during the quietest hours of the night, bounced off commercial satellites to a terminal in Damascus.
The conspiracy was vast, involving a network of sympathetic businessmen and coerced informants who believed they were helping a humanitarian cause. Arash was the pivot point, the intellectual core of an operation designed to launch a swarm of suicide drones from the very coastline he claimed to be protecting. The genius of the plan lay in its transparency. No one suspects the doctor. No one searches the ambulance. The escalation was silent. Every move Arash made was countered by an invisible move on the board. When he tried to recruit a port official, the official was quietly reassigned. When he sought to lease a warehouse near the harbour, the property was suddenly pulled from the market due to a fabricated structural flaw. Arash began to feel the air thickening around him. The paranoia of the spy is a unique illness. It is the realization that the world is looking back at you. He increased his precautions, changed his routes, and checked for tails that weren't there. He was being squeezed by an adversary he couldn't see, trapped in a cage made of his own routine. The Mossad wasn't looking for a confrontation, they were looking for the entire network. They waited until the moment of the final transmission, the one that would have signaled the start of the coordinated strike. The end did not come with a raid or a firefight. It came on a Tuesday morning, as ordinary as any other. Arash was preparing his coffee when the woman from the tavernaire walked into the clinic.
She wasn't carrying a sketchbook this time. She sat across from him and placed a single photograph on the desk. It was a picture of the real Arash Rezai, taken years ago. She didn't say who she was. She didn't have to. The silence in the room was absolute, the weight of years of deception collapsing in a single heartbeat. Outside, the clinic continued to function. The nurses moved between rooms, and the children waited for their checkups, unaware that the man they called a savior was being led out the back door by two men in civilian clothes. There were no sirens, no headlines. The Iranian network in Cyprus vanished overnight, its members disappearing into the bureaucracy of international intelligence. The transmitters were seized, the fishing boat was scuttled in deep water, and the threat to the gas fields was neutralized before a single drone could take flight. The aftermath was a return to the banal. A new doctor arrived at the clinic, a real one this time, sent by a different NGO. The people of Larnaca wondered for a few days where the kind Dr. Rezai had gone, perhaps moved to a more urgent front of the endless war. They moved on, as people do, forgetting the face of the man who had sat among them with murder in his heart. But in the archives of the Mossad, the file remained open, a testament to the fact that the most dangerous enemies are those who look like us, talk like us, and do the work of saints to hide the hands of sinners.
The world remained as it was, quiet, sunny, and deceptively peaceful. But beneath the surface, the gears of a hidden war continued to grind, fueled by the knowledge that for every doctor exposed, another ghost is already stepping into a new set of shoes. The stethoscope sits on a table, a cold piece of metal and rubber, a reminder that in the game of intelligence, the most effective weapon is not a bullet, but the truth hidden in plain sight. The city of Larnaca eventually forgot the name Arash Rezai. The dust settled on his empty apartment, and his few belongings were donated to local charities. The man who had been a pillar of the community was erased from its memory with the same efficiency with which he had been inserted. But the operation left a lasting mark on the landscape of intelligence. It served as a reminder that the battlefield has no borders and no uniform. The enemies of the state do not always hide in bunkers or mountains. Sometimes they are the people who hold our hands when we are sick, the ones who smile at our children and buy us a drink at the end of a long day. The betrayal is not just of a nation, but of the very concept of human trust. This is the reality of the Shadow War. It is a conflict where victory is measured by what does not happen, the explosion that never occurs, the ship that arrives safely, the city that sleeps without knowing how close it came to the fire.
In the quiet rooms of Tel Aviv, the analysts moved on to the next discrepancy, the next anomaly in the data stream of a globalized world. They know that the victory in Cyprus was just one move in a game that never ends. The Iranian operative had been a professional, a man of high intelligence and iron will, but he had been undone by the very thing that made him successful, his commitment to the role. He had forgotten that every action, no matter how small, leaves a trace. He had forgotten that the Mossad does not look for the monster, they look for the man who is trying too hard not to be one. The sun continues to rise over the Mediterranean, reflecting off the glass towers and the blue water, beautiful and indifferent. It shines on the innocent and the guilty alike, illuminating a world where the line between the two is often nothing more than a carefully constructed lie. The threat remains, invisible and persistent, a shadow waiting for the next opportunity to step into the light. As the dusk falls over the coast, the lights of the offshore platforms begin to twinkle, a necklace of artificial stars on the horizon. They are a symbol of a nation's strength and a target for its enemies. They stand as a testament to the vigilance of those who watch the watchers, those who understand that peace is not the absence of war, but the result of a constant, invisible defense.
The story of the doctor who wasn't a doctor is just a single chapter in a book that is being written every day. It is a book of secrets, of sacrifices, and of the cold, hard logic of survival. The next operative might be a teacher, a journalist, or a businessman. They will have a name, a history, and a reason for being there. And somewhere, someone will be watching, waiting for the moment they look at the wrong thing or speak with the wrong accent. Because in the world of intelligence, the most dangerous thing you can be is ordinary. The final report was filed in a digital vault that few will ever access. It contained no praise, no medals, and no public recognition. It was a clinical account of a task completed. The woman who sat in the taverna is already in another city, with a different name and a different sketchbook. She does not look back. Her life is a series of borrowed identities, a mirror of the man she caught. She understands better than anyone that the price of safety is the loss of a permanent self. She is a ghost hunting ghosts, a silent guardian of a silent world. The child who was treated in the clinic is healthy now, growing up in a world that he believes is safe. He will never know that his life was once a prop in a game of global espionage, or that the man who saved him was prepared to destroy everything he knew. This is the greatest success of the intelligence services, that the world remains unaware of how much it owes to the shadows.
The streets of Cyprus are filled with the sounds of tourists and the smell of sea salt. The clinic remains open, a beacon of hope in a troubled region. The work goes on, the healing continues, and the secrets are kept. But the lesson of Arash Rezai remains. The most effective cover is the one that is lived with conviction. The most dangerous weapon is the one that is never drawn, and the most vital defense is the one that never rests. In the end, the truth is not something that is found. It is something that is uncovered, layer by painful layer, until all that is left is the cold, hard reality of the mission. The world is a complex place, full of beauty and terror, and the boundary between the two is often guarded by those who have chosen to live in the grey. They are the ones who see the patterns in the noise, the ones who hear the silence between the words. They are the reason the lights stay on and the ships keep moving. The invisible thread that connects a clinic in Cyprus to a command center in Tehran is now broken, but other threads are being spun even now. The web is constant, expanding and contracting with the tides of geopolitics. The actors change, the stages move, but the play remains the same. It is a play of deception and discovery, of high stakes and quiet consequences, and as the night closes in, the sense of an invisible threat remains, a quiet hum in the background of modern life. It is the price we pay for our comfort, the tax on our security. The world is full of invisible threats, and the only thing standing between us and the dark is the tireless work of those who refuse to look away. They are the eyes that never blink, the minds that never sleep, the ones who know that the greatest danger is always the one we haven't seen yet. The last light in the clinic is extinguished, and the building stands silent against the night sky. Somewhere out there, another operative is checking into a hotel, another analyst is spotting a pattern, and another shadow is beginning to move. The cycle repeats, a perpetual motion machine of human ambition and strategic necessity. The world is wide, the threats are many, and the guardians are few. But they are enough. For now, they are enough. The world remains full of invisible threats, but it is also full of invisible protectors. And as long as they are there, the truth will eventually find its way into the light, even if it has to pass through the darkest of rooms to get there. The story ends here, but the game is eternal. The quiet has returned to the coast, and the sea carries no memory of the secrets it has witnessed. The Mediterranean is calm, the stars are bright, and for one more night, the world is safe. The stethoscope sits in a drawer, its diaphragm cold and its tube silent. It is no longer a tool of healing or a device of espionage.
It is simply an object, stripped of its purpose and its history.
But if it could speak, it would tell a story of a man who played God to serve a different master. It would tell of the thin line between a savior and a spy, and of the cost of living a life that is a lie. It would tell of the woman who saw through the mask and the nation that stood behind her. It would tell of a world that is much smaller and more dangerous than we like to believe. But the stethoscope is silent and the drawer is closed. The truth is locked away and the day begins again, bringing with it new faces, new challenges, and the same old secrets. The world is still full of invisible threats, and it always will be. But as long as there are those who are willing to watch, to wait, and to understand, the light will always have a chance against the dark. The final line of the report has been written, the last bit of data has been encrypted, and the operation is officially closed. The ghost of Arash Rezai has finally been laid to rest, but the war he was a part of is far from over. It is a war that is fought every day, in every corner of the globe, by people who will never be known and whose stories will never be told. This is their world. This is our reality. And this is the way the world is kept safe, one secret at a time.